Just been
Now it's the LSC inauguration. I grabbed them for everybody.
I'm trying to make sure I get on Wi-Fi. Is it on the bed?
Nothing. How you doing? I'll sit down. Seeing like rails. I'm in the building. And then you turn one block before this. And that corner right there, that's what Catalpa and Green. That's what it is. Yeah, that's where Finley's classroom. It's big greenhouse. So you could have another block south of that.
I'm at the Calpa and
Oh, Wayne. Good. Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Oh, you're free.
Hey, everybody.
You said you weren't coming. Now you say you're coming.
I said I was coming. So I took this and this.
There's the. I'm in a pink building.
I like that. Hello.
So I was about to call you today. I was trying to do the thing. And it's been a while since I've used it a lot.
I know.
It's not working.
We're back to school. Remember?
That was 60 years ago. A little over 10.
That's cool. So, no shame.
There's more ghosts than anything else. If you don't want the elevator to open and then close again, ghosts. Yeah.
Okay. Now you're going. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Peirce Elementary Local School Council regular meeting. Matthew Kwame. Before we get started, I'd like to start with our norms. So throughout the meeting, I'd like to be an active, engaged, contributing participant by sharing perspectives and actively listening to others. To be flexible and respectful of others' time and decisions. To be open to other people's truths and perspectives. Be reminded of differences in cultural and social backgrounds. Be transparent about concerns, challenges, and misunderstandings. Be reflective, collaborative, and supportive. Always take the work back to student achievement. What can we do to make things better for our students, both academically and socio-emotionally? Respect student, staff, and LSC member confidentiality unless there's a threat to safety. Meetings should be paused if LSC members or meeting participants experience harm due to their identity, including but not limited to gender, sexual orientation, race, etc. The harm should be named. Understand that not everything has a right now solution and trust that the process is ongoing. I'd like to welcome all our guests and esteemed participants today. Before we get going, I'd like to go ahead and let you know that we have a sign-up sheet for public participation. If you'd like to speak, we will have 2 opportunities to do that throughout the meeting. With that, we'll do roll call here. Matthew Kwame, parent rep. Yeah, next.
Oh, I am? Oh, sorry. Adrian Kabachi, student representative.
Lori Zayden, principal.
Adolfo Ramirez, mascot.
Megan Topa, teacher representative.
Bridget Judy Hanson, teacher representative.
Later Day, community rep.
Vermont Land Community Rep.
Oliver Dinich, parent rep.
Nicole Granke, parent rep.
Eric Oakson, parent rep.
And Sunita Vimana, Rocky Dodia, parent rep.
Thank you. Sonia is not here. I didn't get a
She
notice.
sent it, and saying she's not able to make it.
Got it. Thank you. All right. First on the agenda is the approval of the order of the agenda. Let's make a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
Can I recommend moving up, Brandon from Northwestern
Yes.
to right after items needing council approval?
Use, anybody second?
I'll
So we'd like to make a motion to approve the order of the agenda with moving Northwestern University Community Report after the items need council approval. Nicole seconds. Any discussion other than moving that? Okay. All in favor? Good, thank you. Motion passes. All right. The next one is now moving on to items needing council approval. The first one, which is sort of like an ongoing basis, allowing LSC members to join the meeting remotely. I'd like to make a motion to allow LSC members to join the meeting remotely.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Good, thank you. It passes. Second item is approval of the minutes from the September 11th regular meeting. Eric, thank you very much for standing in and taking the notes. We circulated those a few weeks ago. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 11th regular meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. We have a couple of leasing agreements and fundraiser approvals to go through. First one is approval of Kids Night Out leasing agreement. The first, is it for one or is it several?
It's for several,
Okay.
please. October, can't read it on here, the cutoff. I see November 3rd, January 26th, February 23rd, March 8th, April 12th, May 10th. And I'm assuming that that's 10/13, but 10/13 is
October 18.
October 18th. Thank you. So October 18th, November 3rd, January 26th, February 23rd, March 8th, April 12th, and May 10th.
Sorry, what time was that? October 18th?
October 18th, November 3rd, January 26th, February 23rd, March 12th, April 8th, and May 10th.
6 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the leasing agreement for Kids Night Out on the aforementioned dates.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Similar approval of the fundraiser for Kids Night Out on those dates as well. I'd like to make a motion to approve the fundraiser for Kids Night Out on the suggested dates.
I see.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Next, approval of Fall Fest fundraiser. That was my bad last time. We did the leasing agreement approval. Now we need to approve the actual fundraiser. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the fundraiser for Fall Fest. And the date again,
Saturday, October 19th.
on October 19th. Wait a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Next item is an item that we added last night for the 48th Ward Halloween Parade. I don't know if you had like any.
Yeah, I do have an update on that. I don't know if we just scratch it from here. But yeah, met with Andersonville Chamber, 48th Ward Office, PSO, FOP, and talked to principals Amy about this event, and everybody kind of agreed it's not really a Peirce event. historically, but it had started at Peirce and then went to Catalpa Plaza or Yosemite in like previous years. So for this year, kind of the new iteration of it is actually just gonna start at Broman Park, so we won't start at Peirce at all, so it will go from Broman Park to Catalpa Plaza. So, we don't need to do anything
All right.
with the council at Peirce.
Okay. Thank you. This is it in terms of items needing the council approval. Moving on to the next item.
Brandon Dole is here from Northwestern. He had conducted a research study last year at Peirce, but he'll share findings from that and share the findings with the teachers on September 27th, PD Day. This is sort of like a follow-up to multiple years of research that Northwestern has partnered with Peirce School. So, Brandon, is that good?
That's fine.
Okay, it's okay to say over here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon. I am a PhD student at University of Chicago, but I work with Northwestern to do research. And last year, we did research here, kind of building on, as you were saying, some previous year studies, focusing on race broadly, thinking about how students are understanding race and racism in school contexts. And so based on that work, we sort of wanted to narrow in and understand how white students also were making sense of race. Much of the previous work was looking at how students of color were thinking about race. We sort of had a parallel of curiosity, how are white students thinking about these alongside their peers of color, and how can we really understand or have everyone in the school be sort of contributing to the broader school environment. So I conducted 28 interviews last year with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade white students. And just to kind of briefly go through, the questions, there were a number of different questions focused on just having students reflect on what it means to them to be white, what types of things they're learning about race in the classroom, how that's shaping how they think about themselves and others, and whether they're noticing racism occurring in Peirce. And so the three kind of main takeaways that I found was that students often were thinking about race just as oppression, not necessarily privilege. So the sort of idea that race only involved others or just involved people of color rather than white people as well. And so that was kind of the main sort of through line through the different interviews. Another thing that was very present was kind of constructing racism as only historical. So really thinking about race in the past. A lot of them mentioned topics like learning about slavery and the civil rights movement and historical police brutality. And so a lot of their constructions of race was really tied to past. And then also another sort of interesting finding was that many of the students noticed racism occurring in school. Almost all of them were able to give an example, right, of seeing racism happen. But a lot of them at the same time still maintained that they felt like there was no racism happening at Peirce. So it was kind of this interesting contradiction, right? Seeing it, but then denying it at the same time. And so based on these findings, we wanted to sort of continue this work and think about how to bring these topics into the classroom in a way that gets all students really critically thinking about race and racism. Not necessarily just for white students, even for students of color, but to just really kind of bring in some of that perspective. And so we were hoping to partner with administrators, teachers in 6th and 7th and 8th grade to sort of continue this work and thinking about how to bring those perspectives into what Peirce is already doing around race, which is all the work is extremely important and ongoing. So we really want to sort of add to what's already being done and bring those perspectives in. And so I've done basically the gist of the findings, but happy to answer any questions or any thoughts. Yes.
Thanks for coming, Brandon. Quick question, is it part of a broader CPS research or is it just Peirce?
So this partnership is just with Peirce. So we're just working with students at Peirce, but there are certainly research being done at other CPS schools.
Okay. And maybe follow up with that, you mentioned 20 students, is it 20 per grade or just 20 per?
28.
Yeah, I interviewed 28 white students, kind of like pretty equal across 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
Okay. And how were the students selected?
So everyone who identified as white and was in 6th and 7th, 8th grade received the study materials, and then whoever wanted to participate was able to sign up for the study. Yeah.
I was wondering if you have any insight about how you make sense of this duality that you mentioned students feel, where they observe racism but then don't identify their school as being a racist space.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most interesting findings, right, and one that I'm still kind of sitting with. But I think at least my perception, sort of involves how we talk about racism in schools, right? Often we think about it as something historical, or the way that we talk about race doesn't necessarily allow students to consider what they see as racism. So their own sort of working definitions of racism seem to not necessarily capture what they see and know in their everyday sort of experiences. So that's another kind of thing to think about, right, with the curriculum of like giving students the knowledge and capacity to really identify what they see and notice in front of them. So that we can kind of shift this to, right, like when you see racism in school, to try to confront that, right, instead of sort of look the other way. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more, Brandon, about like the big picture of like what you're doing here? This is part of your PhD work, right?
Yeah.
So I know a lot of our LSC members are relatively new, so might not kind of know the context around what you're doing and like your kind of goals. And I know as part of that question too, I know there was another PhD student who had projects going on too. So could you tell us more about kind of what else is happening?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, so previous to me, Josiah, who I believe maybe presented to you all, there's new members, but about his work, which really focused on thinking about how the larger socio-political context, so really thinking about like Black Lives Matter movement, how are students making sense of that sort of at school, but also parents and peers. And he did interview white students, but his focus really was on students of color and trying to sort of bring their experiences to the forefront in that conversation. And he's since moved on to a new position, so he's no longer in Chicago. But this work is really a continuation of that and trying to think, right, of how to also address racism, not only from the perspective of oppression, but also privilege, right? So we know that it matters, right, that the school environment, there's people with many different backgrounds and experiences and perspectives, and how do we make sure that we're engaging everyone in this conversation and holding everyone accountable to contribute to this equitable environment and try to prioritize equity in the school. And that's really where my work has focused on. So most of my work is working with white students to try to think about how we can use education as a tool to think critically about race and identity and our own positions and how society is connected to those. And so my larger work is sort of exactly kind of this, of thinking about how do we have critical conversations about race in school settings in a way that is beneficial for all students, right? And sort of approaching both from privilege and oppression.
Thank you. I have another question too. I was wondering if I imagine, the results and the kind of, I don't know if it was a forum or, the comments from students is confidential. Is that something that you're sharing with the principal, or that could be shared with the LSC, or kind of what what's the scope of that, what we can see from
Yeah,
those interviews?
definitely. I do have like, yeah, the quotes and all of that I can share. Everything's anonymous, obviously, like the participant names, that is completely anonymous, but, in terms of like some of all of those themes that I mentioned earlier, like the 3 biggest findings, like there are obviously relevant quotes to those themes that kind of support. So I'd be happy to share that information, and I've already shared that too with the school and teachers as well.
Thank you.
And to that point, Mrs. Peirce looking to do something with this data, or?
Yeah, so, as a result, Brandon's meeting with our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade language arts and social studies teachers to look at where within the curriculum as it exists can we sort of shift some of the conversations and thinking, so that students are seeing the impact of race from a broader perspective and not just from the oppressed perspective. And the position of like where we all fit.
And related to that was around the curriculum and what goes back to CPS. And so I was going to ask if you were to come up with some guidelines to redirect the current curriculum and principle in terms of what goes back to CPS and what is within the bounds of what Peirce can change
No,
in terms of history and social studies.
We have the ability to, it's sort of, the curriculum exists, the standards stay the same.
Okay.
It's just shifting like the, sort of like the lens that we're entering into a particular lesson. And so that's where the work with Brandon, Mr. Lee, and our teachers. Mr. Lee's our 5th grade 8th assistant principal. And so they'll like look at where are like places that this can naturally fit so that standards are still addressed, but that we're able to refocus some of our conversations.
What kind of support can we provide as part of the LSC to, what kind of support can we provide?
No, that's a great question. I think in terms of just really like your feedback, I guess, on thinking about like next directions or any like strategies or things that you think are important to think about when we're like engaging in this work. If there's particular perspectives or opinions that you have on how to do the work, I think that would be extremely helpful.
One more question.
Yeah.
Relating to the future of your research or the next student, right? Because these things do take time, right? It's not like you can change behavior overnight. So what's the plan around that? Are you focused on this, that you should have a long term? You're trying to build a longer relationship with CPS schools? Just trying to think through that, because let's say we were to, put together a guideline, change our curriculum, then we want to know in a year or in 2 years, how is that changing even the same student, if we can come back in a year or 24 months, right? Just thinking through that.
No, that's a really good question. So it's been, I guess, different PhD students in the school, but the larger project is connected to Dr. Mesman-Dustin, who has been partnered with the school for, I think, close to 10 years now. So all of this work he's been overseeing all of this work, involved in the conversations, and he's always present, and his perspective is always there. So there's always a longevity in someone here. I am in my 3rd year and I have a lot of like 4 years left. So I am excited to continue to build this relationship and work with Peirce on an ongoing capacity. So I'm looking to, stay as long as you all will have me. So.
And I think from like a measurement, so it's sort of like we get them, so school administration meets with Mesman, PhD candidate, we talk about like things going on in school, what are areas of focus for us, where does that match some of the research interests from the candidates? And then we work together to co-design what that process is going to look like. And so some of the things that really came from Josiah's work was our work with affinity spaces, which was like a huge shift forward for us, but that was after like a couple different years of research and like raising awareness, but then also like what's sort of like that ongoing piece that we can continue, and that's it. I think the work with Brandon is really going to be anchoring how can we shift the conversation within our instructional materials. And then we'll be in like constant like conversation over time to figure out where might we wanna like dig into next and how long can Brendan stay with us, but as we're having Mesman as like that other person has been key because he also knows who's coming in from a PhD, candidacy perspective.
So there's a chance it's like you can continue.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's great to hear, that's what I was trying to get to, is that professor there that's running this long term.
What's your last name?
Dull, D-U-L-L.
I want to take the opportunity to thank Principal Amy for bringing this to Peirce. I mean, this is really special. It's nearly impossible, I think, to get approval to work with students a lot at this age a lot of the time. And I think it takes, bravery to, lift the veil and really be kind of looking at, in this level of depth at our school. So thank you, Principal Amy, for that opportunity. And I'm wondering if an equity committee might play a role in kind of continuing these conversations too, like maybe I feel like we could talk about this for an hour or more, so maybe that's a space that we can host Brandon and maybe your professor and the language arts teachers who are working on the curriculum and kind of bring folks together to continue that conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
The district has like a board IRB approval, and so like they have to clear that. They have to clear it at Northwestern and at CPS because it is difficult to get permission to get like information from students, and so this has all been like IRB approved.
When is the expected next iteration of the interviews on this?
The research. So we're hoping to continue this year, really starting the process, and hopefully doing some type of evaluation to kind of make some of those changes to the curriculum, engage in the conversation, and see sort of what impact that has on students. But like you all are suggesting, I think this is kind of might be something that takes longer than just 1 year, or see what happens. Do our best this year and kind of like build on that next year too as well.
Any other questions? Again, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next, student representative report.
Hey guys, so I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have anything. I have one thing, but sort of a long shot, So I have this friend, and his mom works at the school as a substitute, and she's been getting emails from parents asking why the third graders can't go to the field, and vice versa. How other grade levels, like higher grade levels, couldn't go to the playground. So, yeah.
Not every grade level gets access to the playground, and not every grade level gets access to the turf. And so it's just a matter of what grade levels are outside at what times, and who can we like place where, because we don't want like third graders with eighth graders. And so like we have to be conscious of like the age differences, the staffing ratio. So there's like a process behind that. And I've shared that like reasoning with third grade teachers.
Okay. I have a question for you. Do you feel like in general there's just a lot of angst about like recess and lunch? And do you just feel like there's a general amount of frustration with recess and lunch and the schedule and how much time?
I'm gonna be honest, not really. Maybe there is a bit in lunchtime that these students have been complaining. I haven't really heard any complaining this year though, but in my previous year.
It's just like a schedule, Rubik's Cube. It's so complicated.
That's it.
I have a question. Around interest, is there a better way for the students to know that he's a representative and understand that there is access to him? Because I feel like last time, the two things that he brought up, I think it was one with the cafeteria and the other one was with the fountain. I felt like those are very good points that he brought in, being right there on the spot, like being part of the building and interacting with some of these things. I feel like he brought useful information. So I wonder if students know that he is a representative, or because I asked him last time and he said I posted a few will you email, I believe he told me, like he posted like some notes around the school.
Yeah, I was getting to that, but I kind of forgot.
So I wonder if like the teachers can maybe promote that.
Well, so there's like two different things with that. One is that we have our student voice committee that we had our first meeting with the adults. And so that's part of my principal's report, is that we're branching off into two committees of the student voice committee. One where staff members will focus on professional learning, and one where student leaders that are part of the different student spaces will be able to meet regularly so that we can talk through just streamline the process a little bit more and also increase student voice in school and classroom decision making. And so we're very close to being able to get that structure up and running. And so Adrian was invited to meet with student representatives from student council as well as the affinity spaces, probably monthly, and then look at ways that we want to seek input from students so that that information can be shared with other students, with staff, with the LSC. So we're close to that. And then the other is how much is Adrian interested in taking on more leadership and seeking out that information on his own.
So just to clarify, that the separate student council that meets and talks about the concerns of the students?
It will be. It's
Oh,
not yet
okay.
formally right now. Mhm.
And Adrian will be part of that.
So he won't be part of student council. Well, he may be part of student council, but there will be a student voice committee of student leaders within the building. So sort of like a committee meeting of students that are in different leadership roles.
Going back to the school lunch, was that ever fixed? I know you guys.
So the lunch line, the second lunch line still is not open, right? It's not. I mean,
Part of it's open.
They're waiting on a part to still come in. The person came, fixed it, and then they needed something more. So the second lunch line is not fully operational still. But I've been checking in with the lunchroom managers beyond Peirce regularly. And then the water fountain was fixed.
Yeah, I was.
Thank you, Adrian. Next, principal report.
So, I am not gonna go into too much just because I wanted to spend time on us reviewing changes to the CIWP, and then also just acknowledge Brandon's presentation was a part of our meeting, but also part of the principal's report. So I wanted to first review the changes to the goals. I had shared these at the last LSC meeting, and they start on the second page where it says priority 1. And we wanted to shift our goals because we had made progress in priority 1 and priority 2. And so wanting to adjust our goals based on still pushing ourselves in achieving it. So I've listed out what those changes would be for curriculum and instruction and STAR reading among African American students and English language learners, and then the same for STAR math. So those adjustments are there. Priority 2, inclusive and supportive learning. On the third page, we wanted to shift the language of the actual goal to be increased percentage of students who are having positive tier movement in branching minds. And then students who are in tier 2 and tier 3, we would have to combine those data points together. Instead of keeping them as two separate data points. So it would be adding all of the kids and then dividing how many actually met, or how many had positive tier movement. And then, so the same idea for reading. And then we need to change the wording of the performance goal for the second performance goal to increase the percentage of goals met for students receiving tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. And the reason that those changes are being proposed are because of the way that we're seeing the data come through. The way we had previously written it made no sense. And so like the current reading would make more sense and we would get more accurate. We would have data that is aligned to these two different ways of writing the priorities, the goals for the priorities. And then the other thing to note in priority 2, the second section, where it's changed to increase the percentage of goals met for students receiving tier 2 and tier 3 interventions in math. We have to, actually, that should be tier 2 math and tier 3 reading. Because we can't actually, the way that we have to write them into the CIWP, the new tool that they've given us, we can't combine them. We would have to pick. So we were trying to do in the past tier 2 and 3 reading and math. We can't actually do that. So we decided to focus on tier 2 math and increasing the percentage of students with goals met, and tier 3 reading. And so that would be the other shift. So I apologize, I actually wrote that in here incorrectly.
So
And
what
then-
is this supposed to be?
So it should read for the changing the wording of the performance goal to increase the percentage of goals met for students receiving tier 2 math
Okay.
and tier 3 reading interventions. And then you would see where the students in tier 2 math, what those updated goals would look like. And then in tier 3 reading. Because what we were doing before is we were essentially adding in 4 goals when we can only establish 2. And then in partnerships and engagement, we wanted to change the metrics, just in terms of, we made progress in decreasing the percentage of students of color who are referred for discipline. So we wanted to further decrease that instead of flatlining and saying that it's okay for us to now increase this year. We wanted to continue that downward trend. And then for students with IEPs, we had not made a lot of progress. And so we wanted to shift it so that it was more in alignment with what we were seeing as trends from last year. Are there questions about the recommended changes in the CIWP goals?
So you're saying that the changes are because they cannot be combined?
For priority 2, that's
Priority,
correct.
right?
Yes. For the second set.
And again, as a reminder, for priority 1, the reason why those changes are made is because when we compared what progress has been made compared to what we were expecting, we've already exceeded the goal for the school year. And so it's better to anchor that based on the actual results and then increase from there, instead of sticking with the previous goals, which are now lower and have been exceeded.
Thank you. I have a question, Principal Daly. So for our students of color, that we're trending in the direction we want to be, but for students with IEPs, we're not. And I'm wondering kind of why you think that is, what
From last school year, there's a lot of need among students, some students with IEPs, and we need to support teachers, some of whom may be newer to being special education teachers or teachers in co-taught classrooms, and needing to support them with implementation of what's written in the IEP. So from a professional development angle, we also had revised our crisis response process to be in alignment with the district so that we can also get ahead of some of these issues and try to intervene early. So a lot of it is from professional development and coaching, and then supporting teachers when they're seeing that they are implementing the IEP and the student is not making progress, then you need to revise the IEP. So it might be adding in a special education classroom assistant. It might be increasing minutes for a student within the IEP so that they get more support from a special education teacher, or maybe it's layering in social work. So it's trying to like understand like what's at the root of it. So like each situation might be different. So it's like analyzing each, like where we're seeing these trends and then figuring out what the best plan of support is going to be.
Gotcha, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm wondering, I guess, if there's any lessons learned from the progress with students of color that could be applied to students with IEPs, or if it's just very different.
It's like they're different right now. Some of it is also awareness of the data, but we're also running into challenges with this year's data. So like how we're collecting data and analyzing it is also like still needing some thinking.
It changed this year?
I mean, it's just, I'll explain it in a minute. It's just like, yeah. I'll explain that.
A question, maybe we'll cover it, but what's the criteria for the IEP? Like, how does a student get the IEP designation? Because I'm not aware in terms of the numbers in IEP and how that impacts in the direction that we can go.
There would be a request for referral, either initiated by a parent or a staff member, and they're seeing some academic or behavioral needs where they feel like an evaluation would be needed to better create an individualized plan that supports the student. And so there's a meeting where a team meets, including parent, teacher, case manager, some of the related service providers, maybe nursing, social work, speech, OT, psychologists. They would meet and determine who on the team should do an evaluation based on the information that's being shared. They then go and do their evaluation, come back, share their findings, and make recommendations for what they think is a good plan to support that student. Sometimes parents do outside evaluations and then bring the evaluation to the school and say, based on this outside information, we'd like to request an evaluation. Same process happens, but then you also have that outside data and information that can be used to help inform that plan.
Is it consensus based or?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, there's also federal and state guidelines for certain things that put people eligible for certain buckets. Like if someone is clinically diagnosed as being dyslexic, they're already into the bucket of consider for an IEP.
Potentially. So there's also, does that student, so there may be a disability, but what's the impact on the school and on their learning? So some students, they have a disability, but their learning is not impacted, and so no IEP is needed. And then in some cases, the opposite.
Is the I an individual?
What's the time, do they accelerate the time of being able to, the process?
For the IEP process, well, it can go on for a long time because you have to like request an evaluation and you have to meet with them. I think it's 30 days or like there's timelines that are established. So you have to do a request to discuss a potential referral, determine whether or not that eligibility is warranted. Then the assessments are completed. I think it's like 3 months after that for those assessments to be completed.
Is there comparison in the percentages with the other schools in the districts and where we land? Is there such a?
Nobody, so for what?
For any of this, like, is there like a baseline that you can compare it to some of the other schools where
They don't recommend we do that when we're creating goals. They want us to look at where we're at and do like root cause analysis based on what we know about our school and then establish plans. People are not looking at discipline data in the same way that we are because it's not easy to pull the data and it's not like publicly shared. They're focused more on incidences that escalate to the dean level, and our data looks phenomenal, because like we don't use suspension, very rarely is there in-school suspension. And so like we use restorative model. But people are looking at like the classroom referrals in the same way. And then our work with like inclusive and supportive learning, some schools may be looking at the data the same ways. There's nothing that says that, but we can see, not all schools are using STAR, kindergarten through 8th grade also, but we could see like where schools are using STAR and what like the average score would be. So, I would like to motion to approve the adjusted goals as noted in the principal's report with the update to the second inclusive and supportive learning goal, as I have noted, that would read increase the percentage of goals met for students receiving tier 2 math and tier 3 reading interventions.
Second.
Any discussion? 1 second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Motion passes, yeah.
And then some other things from the principal's report that I wanted to highlight are, after 20th day enrollment, we had 21 students enrolled kindergarten through 8th grade. And so we received $8,740 that we will need to determine how to allocate.
For 20 students.
I was hoping we would get an additional teaching position, because they said that if we have 20 students, we would qualify for additional teaching position only if you had class sizes that were above the CTU limit. And so because our class sizes were not above the CTU limit, we did not qualify for an additional teaching position.
In aggregate?
And
on average, like what class size?
it's 20, it's like 28, but 31 in kindergarten through 2nd grade. And so like we've got one classroom at 30, and then the rest are at like 28, 29.
So in order to be considered for an additional teaching position, you need to exceed that count on all classes for that particular grade.
If you had one class, but then if you have room in one classroom, then you'd have to move it over. And then the other thing that I learned, so this is something I have to think about in budgeting, is had we opened teaching positions using 124 funds, our internal accounts, versus putting that money towards buckets or supplies, which is what we did, they may have considered giving us a position, because then we were paying for a position with internal accounts. But these are the things that we don't know until after the fact, and then the rules change. So
most classes in that particular area have to be like at 31, like at least 2 of them.
in K2, and then in 3, 8, it would be 34. So that's my budget update. So I'm not sure where we should spend that money right now. It'll probably be in like substitutes, or that would be my recommendation, or like to support some of our like extended day buckets. But I wanted to see sort of like how things are leveling out over the next month. It's not a huge amount. The other thing is from a special ed position update. I submitted for 3 additional special ed classroom assistants and 1 special education teacher over a month ago, and had reached out again last week and was told that they still have not reviewed it. So we were hoping that they would have a response by this week. So we still don't have those positions in place.
Can I ask you a question? I don't know to the end too.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering for enrollment for kindergarten, I know post-COVID, you shared with us that we saw kind of the first time ever in your memory of Peirce that we got through the kindergarten wait list, the whole wait list. And did that happen this year? I'm wondering?
No, we have a huge wait list right now. We may have got through it like that one year,
Okay.
but we did not, I don't think we got through it last year, and we are like, we've got so many kids on the wait list right now.
Okay. Good, yeah, I was just curious about that, interesting. And for these requests for these special ed positions, I mean, is this delay, I'm wondering kind of this, or is anything else kind of impacting us with the board resigning?
I think that the district, what I continue to hear is that the district does not have money right now. And it's taking them a long time to review these appeals. So I don't know if it's because of budget or because of like human power to like get through the, I don't know why the delay is happening.
From my sense, right, lack of budget, they could still review it, because they're not the money, so you're not getting a teacher, but you're just not getting an answer, right?
Well, for special education, they have to provide the staff, because right now we've got students unsupported for their IEP. And so we've had to send what's called like letters to families indicating that their child's, parts of the child's IEP are currently going unsupported. And so my question was, we sent that after 10 days, like, do we send another one now? And they have not responded to me. So, because we've got some kids now that have been 20 days without receiving services for their IEP. The high school admissions test happened today, much smoother than last year when there were like the tech issues that had happened. And then after school programs began this week. Our EL after school program will begin the week of November 4th. And custodian appreciation day was October 2nd, and the custodians at Peirce were recognized for being number 1 in the Network 2 region for logging their work using this new house comfort system. Which they were like, what is this? They were like, it was nice that they got recognized. And Bridget and Megan will give an update on PBLC, but that will be, oh, I did want to talk about the discipline data. So if you look at like towards the back, you'll see this colored table. And so what I mean by things are a little bit difficult to interpret right now is that when I looked at data as of yesterday, there were only 8 classroom referrals that were considered escalations. I know that there's been more than 8 referrals that have received school-wide attention. And so I've asked Ms. Fonte and Ms. Randall to go through, because there are a total of 62 journal entries, and some of those I know should have been logged as escalations. So I've asked them to go through that data and get back to teachers so that they know that they should be logging it for an escalation, because the data is just not accurate right now. Which is why I decided this time to include all of our journals and our escalations. But I don't have an accurate data point right now.
So there were 62 and 8 escalations.
So 62 journal entries, 70 total, so 8 that were considered escalations. The escalations is what we were monitoring, like last year, and that's what we used when writing our CLWP goals. And so I know that of those 62, so those are just like teachers going in and writing a journal entry about an incident with the student. But sometimes it reads as if like it was handled at the classroom level, but like some of them I know for certain that like school administration was involved in. And so whenever it is something that is beyond the classroom level, it should be escalated for dean support. And it's just the way that the data was entered is not accurate.
So it needs to be.
I want accurate data, otherwise then we just have to look at journal entries, but then some of it are like so low level that it's not even, it's like, that's not the data that we want to look at either. So I will keep you all updated on progress made between this month and next month. And that concludes my principal's report. Oh, Did you all get this in there? This was a mistake. You didn't? Oh, just me. Okay, good. Thank you. This was something else. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing is the district shared, if you're interested in being part of the LSC advisory board, there's, information on how you can do that. So. Take a look.
Lori, on page 2 of your, where on the budget,
Yes.
you have some numbers that you have listed there. What are those?
Page
Like accounts?
2. Oh, at the top, I should have deleted that. Those were my notes. That would be the budget, that's the budget line that the funds are currently loaded to.
Got it.
I usually like to make notes and then make sure that like I get it into one of these boxes.
These were emailed.
What's that?
These were emailed out. One of those emails that start with "please read" in all bold, all
And they sent
capitals.
me hard copies of everything, so that we should share it with them.
Other questions? Okay. Internal accounts?
I had emailed the August 2024 internal accounts. I'll make the motion to approve internal accounts that were emailed.
Second? Any discussion?
Was there anything of note, or is it all just routine
No.
monthly business?
Come September, you'll see money come out of there because of the budget that was approved in April or May. We had to wait for funds to load so that that money would move over to the budget line, but that was already approved. It's just based on when we can make those. You'll see a decrease in funds available from August to September. But nothing to note.
I was able to skim through it and there was nothing. That made it all just look like routine.
All in favor? Thank you. Motion passes. Anything else on the budget? All right, next, thank you, Lori. Next item is public participation. Like I said, there's a makeshift sign-up sheet, and I'll double check also. There you go. Thank you. Ashley?
Yeah.
Oh, is it already?
Oh, yeah. Come back.
I thought we were still going over budget.
No, we're good.
Okay, am I first on the list?
You are.
Okay, so, I wanted to bring up, Peirce Athletics. I think the program and all the kids that are going into it are fantastic. But I've noticed something. The CPS score program has an official no cut policy, and kids are being cut from teams here. I'm not sure like that's the exact language that's being used, but it's like you made the official team, you didn't make the official team. And I'm like, I'm concerned, especially in 5th and 6th grade, that kids that don't have outside opportunities to play sports, like the kids who have outside opportunities to play sports are the kids that are making the team in 5th and 6th grade, and then the kids who don't have those outside opportunities typically aren't, or maybe don't have the opportunity to make the team. And so because they're not getting into teams in 5th and 6th grade, then it's kind of like a cascade, right? You don't make the team in 5th and 6th grade, and then you just kind of give up. And I know that there's language that it's like, oh, well, we have the official team, and we have the practice team, and everyone can still practice with us. Like, we were all children, like, if you don't make the official gameplay team, you're probably gonna feel defeated and not come back. And so I just wanted to bring that up. I had brought it up to the athletic director, especially the fifth and sixth grade program was revamped. So that it focuses more on skill building, and so they're not doing like competitive games against other schools in order to give kids an opportunity to learn sports. And so I was really surprised that this year, and I can't speak for all sports, but in fifth and sixth grade soccer, there were still cuts. It was, like I received a letter that my son had made the team. So that language is like kind of still being used. And I just like wanted to just kind of make an overall awareness of this. Like, how can we, is it an issue of not being able to find enough coaches? Is it an issue of not being able to get enough stipends from CPS for coaches? Like, how can we make sports here more inclusive for everybody?
Can I ask is this just this year or in years past as well? This is the first time I'm hearing this.
Like kids cut from teams?
Yeah.
With my daughter, I know several years ago, she tried out for volleyball, she didn't make the team, and then it was like, well, you're encouraged to keep practicing with us. But this year with soccer, I know that my son came home and was like, some kids are gonna make the official team, and then if you don't make the official team, you can still come practice with us. So that, like, they are getting that language from that kind of idea from somewhere. And the fifth and sixth grade program, they're not even playing other schools anymore. They're doing like Saturday clinics where like everyone's coming in. So my idea when I brought this up, I said, why isn't it that if we have a maximum of 20 kids for soccer, why aren't we rotating those kids in and out on Saturdays then? So everyone has the opportunity. And still, there were, I think, 3 kids, my son told me, that did not make the official soccer team. And he shared with me that 3 of those kids had really hard feelings. No one wants to be, those 3 kids. Their name wasn't read out in front of the group. And so, it was hard to hear, especially that I know CPS redesigned this program to be more inclusive and to be more skill building so that everyone has the opportunity to really learn these sports. And I'm not sure, it might just be like a staffing issue, like, one coach per so many kids, I'm not sure. But I'm wondering if we can revisit it and make it more inclusive, especially in 5th and 6th grade, because they're not really competing against other schools. It's more clinic based.
Can we add that to the agenda for like a response for next meeting? Does that work for you? Okay. And I want to uplift this too. I did have a parent on the playground talk about they were upset that their kid was cut from volleyball. So I'm hearing this from parents too.
And I'm not sure they're using that language like you got cut, but it's like, this is the official team, and then everyone else can be on the practice team. But according to the CPS handbook, everyone should be rotated in and out of those types of gameplay. And it's not really, I don't think, a difficult thing to do. To say, like, we have a game, these people can come to this game, next Saturday we'll have another game, those people can play. I don't know the specifics or how it can be done, but I'd like to, as a school, we can revisit athletics and be more inclusive to everyone. Because I feel like, kids who are getting sports outside of school, which is a significant amount of kids here, are probably the ones making those teams. Yeah.
Quick question. Thanks so much for bringing this up. I used to coach middle school soccer back in East Atlanta. And one thing that we noticed, interest changed. So the kids that were initially interested in soccer in 6th, 7th grade switch to a different sport. So by artificially cutting kids at that age, we're actually taking away future athletes for that program. So that was one thing that we learned. So we shifted to just playing everyone, even not cutting, playing everyone. Even if you make the official team and coaches were playing the kids that were better, a year from now, the kids that were better actually, change or even got worse or just things change. So that was a big learning. But I think the unique part of that was we were part of the same school district from 7th, 8th grade, they go to the same high school. So there was interest even at the high school level to make sure that the pipeline was growing and not cutting kids artificially. So I really see it as a valid issue for just the future of sports because, they're so young, interests change, skill level do change tremendously too. So.
And there are fifth graders who are like getting excited to enter Peirce athletics because the sport started fifth grade, and who have never played volleyball, who have never played soccer. And, I feel like fifth and sixth grade should be foundational years where there has the opportunity to learn these sports, not immediately being like, oh, I've never kicked a soccer ball, now I didn't make the team, and now forget it, I'm not interested in soccer. Because that's how kids' minds work.
Is our action step that Laura, you're gonna speak to the athletic director?
Yeah, I need to understand like what's happening better.
Very good. Thank you, Ashley. And we have another. Kate?
Hi, everyone. Kate Doyle. I am one of the candidates running to represent the 2nd District on the Chicago Board of Education. So the 2nd District runs from Montrose Avenue at the southern border all the way up to Howard, and it includes the Peirce community. So I am doing my best to make it to as many of the 43 schools inside of the district to an LSC meeting because I think there's no substitute for being present with the community and learning what you're working on and what issues you're having. And I just want to reflect back to incredible bright spots I heard already. So one, adding that level of rigor to your CIWP goals. Congratulations, it's so great to hear. And then two, the Student Voice Committee sounds really terrific and something that as a former teacher, former special education teacher is like music to my ears. I also hear some serious frustrations with the appeals process. Finding out after the fact that if you had opened that position under internal accounts, potentially that would have given us an additional kindergarten teacher. That sounds quite frustrating. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and to hear that texture. I just want to offer a couple of reminders about this upcoming election. So early voting begins on October 21st. You can vote right now down at the super site downtown. If you are a mail-in ballot person, it should have already hit your mailboxes, but the Chicago Board of Education recently, if anyone read the news on Friday, every board member resigned, and there was a brand new board appointed by Mayor Johnson on Monday. And so the election is still moving forward as planned. So we'll have the opportunity to vote for one representative in each of our districts. And then the mayor will appoint based on where that representative who wins lives, the mayor will appoint from the other side of the district. So there's a district 2B and a district 2A. He can theoretically reappoint one of the nominees from Monday if he wants to, or he could pick a new person. So that's just some texture to know. The term itself is 2 years for everyone. And then in 2026, all of those positions become an elected position, including the board president role, which is going to be a citywide race. And then just like a tiny little bit about me, I'm a mom to a little guy who's going to start with CPS next year. He's going to go to our neighborhood school. And I'm a former special education teacher, and I currently lead a nonprofit that I founded. And we work with young adults who are out of work and out of school who've been disconnected from higher ed to help them regain their confidence and get back on track and connect with careers in tech. So I'll hang out and continue learning and would love to chat after the meeting. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I am looking in the LSC inbox to see if there are any questions. There's one email that I received from the Andersonville Chamber of Commerce.
Can we just email these instead of reading them?
Yeah. There's only one, but I'll forward this on. Very good. Next on the agenda here is community group reports. What we did last time is, we had done that in the past, but we formalized it this time around, sending out an email to each one of the community groups. Lori and I had also the opportunity to meet, with the different leaders of the different groups. And part of my request, or something that I asked, was if they could send a summary in advance so that we could have that documented. So FOP sent one, ESO, REP back. So thanks for making the time and for sending all of these. I'm gonna skip, unless we have a representative from any of the groups, the community groups. I think we can just kind of move on to the next one. Committee reports, PPLC.
The PPLC held its first organizational meeting yesterday. We have 7 elected teacher representatives. Bridget and I are the chair and co-chair. Our secretary is Andrew Mikowski, 5th grade teacher. OMA officer is Bridget, and then FOI officer Shannon Harvey, a 6th grade teacher. The meeting dates are set, and our next meeting is November 7th at 3:15.
Are these open? No, right?
No.
Are they here?
Mhm. Room 110. Agendas are posted 48 hours in advance on yours when you set them.
Thank you. We are glad to see that PPLC is back in business. Next one is Bilingual Advisory Committee back. So Sonia, you had sent the report. Thank you so much for doing that. I don't know if you have any additional comments or anything that you can share.
No comments unless you guys have any questions.
I appreciate the detail of your notes, so thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Next one is the Equity Committee.
So there's 3 of us on the equity committee. We have not met yet. I would love 2 more people, because 3 people is a little tricky. Rocky and I are friends, and that means if we hang out, that's quorum. So we need to recruit some more members, I think, before.
It's not quorum if you're not talking about equity.
Okay. Which is difficult. So I guess I will just put a call out there for folks to email the LSC if you want to join the equity committee. We do have kind of a vision for what we'd like to do with the equity committee this year in terms of convening different parts of the school and talking about equity through the lens of those different elements of the school. So, for example, this conversation with Brandon, I think that could be, a great equity committee meeting. So more to come, but yes, we need 2 more members, please, and you do not have to be on LSC to sit on the equity committee. So parents and community members are encouraged.
We had talked about this in our committee chair meeting.
Yeah, a couple of the members of the REP were actually interested in kind of getting in touch to kind of figure out how to also sort of coordinate efforts and that. So I'm sure we'll hear more from them.
I would suggest just to reach out to the rec email address.
Yeah.
So I forwarded the thing.
Coach and rec parents, okay.
Yeah. Well, they could pivot and do both.
Yeah.
It's and advice about those teachers at the same day teachers for the work of
The next item here is principal evaluation. In the email that came out from, like what Eric was saying, started with please read. We actually, so now we definitely have foot fired to our feet. We actually have to turn in the results by November 1st.
Oh,
For last year's, that didn't happen.
So that's for last year? Okay, so it's not the one that we have to, but we still have to put in the submitted. Right, because we have one, but from last year, like, didn't we do two of them? We actually didn't even do
There's
one.
nothing from last year, so you have nothing to put in.
Okay.
It
So
would just be-
what's the?
I think it's like May 15th for this year.
So, okay, because it's a new council too. All right.
So, sorry, why wasn't there one last year? This done every year?
That's a very good question. So we ran out of time, essentially, is what happened.
we're gonna get censured. But there is no school board that censures us.
What's that?
The council ran over.
That's correct. Yeah. So is there, what can be done? Nothing? Because it's a sitting committee that has to, the sitting council that has to do it.
Yeah, that ship is sailed. I think it's just focusing this year for the May 15th.
Got it.
I think it's May 15th.
Okay.
I linked in the principal's report. I gotta keep it there every month, the evaluation.
I see that, yeah. I think Bridget and I were talking about that, at some point, we're gonna need to, because I think there are two, our main instrument is a survey, so there's a parent survey and then there's a teacher survey, so I'll take that on and take a look at that tool and see if there are any big differences between, I know the rubrics are very similar to what we had before.
They're pretty different.
Yeah?
The criteria is different.
But, okay, but there's still three main, or four main.
Yes, yes. And I would say like the training would be like an area of focus right now to make sure that LSC members have been and completed their training for principal evaluation.
And complete.
Yeah, all of that.
Speaking of that, do you think from the membership last meeting, because I think I volunteered for the principal evaluation.
No.
The three of you,
Because-
Matthew,
yeah.
Eric, and-
And that's right, that's right.
Okay.
All right.
This is just concerned that teacher, I don't know that my trainings in there, also there in the teacher, master training to those,
Yes, that was part of that email, yeah, so the different trainings, that's a reminder, there's extra fund for you as the OMA officer, like extra training also that you could have to get through. I did participate in one virtual option there. All right. Old business, so we had a couple of things I carried over from last time, well, on both sides here, or both sections. The first one is, and I wrote it as vote on whether the LSC will write a letter in support of the indoor air quality. This is something that came up from the parent that was shared during the last meeting. I don't even sure like how, I mean, we'd have to draft it, we'd have to, so
So I think
considerations here.
before we go there, the email where we were talking about a school board member wanting to present, and in that email discussion, Principal Zane brought up that there's a LSC rule against political endorsements, and I don't know if responding to this or endorsing a bill at the state level counts as a political endorsement, and whether, we shouldn't, as much as, I think it's a great idea, I don't know if we're even allowed to. And I feel like, the parent who brought this is just looking for support. And maybe we could write something, but there are 1,000 families. So maybe the way to do it is in the newsletter, say, a parent has asked for support for this, and it goes out in a newsletter, and then anyone who wants to support it can support it. But then we haven't taken a political position, we're only aiding in the communication within the community. And then maybe they get 1,000 write-in supports instead of 15 write-in supports. Again, I don't know if that crosses the line again either.
This makes me very curious because the district there's a political part to this also, like the district has to like lobby in Springfield, like CTU lobbies in Springfield. So like that does exist. I don't know if it's like once people are in. What's that?
Yeah, candidates are different than bills. Like candidates are political activity and a bill is just like the government.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I mean, we can get clarification, but I would say that I think like historically the LSCs have been allowed to like support. I think so.
I don't know.
You raise a good point, like we need clarification.
Yeah, so I think, does it make sense that we're not ready to go on that just yet and we need to add more? Is that the Jose question? Is it?
Maybe we continue discussing.
Well, when is this bill going?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think.
I didn't, last time we went and we pulled it up, I didn't see sort of like timing in terms of like when it would come to the floor.
Can you send that, did you send it to us?
Maybe.
I remember it going out. Do you want to table it for 10 minutes? We'll Rocky looks it up and we'll go to the next item and then come back to it.
That sounds good. In terms of, okay, so the next item that we have here is voting on equity committee membership. I think we wanted to kind of formalize that.
Yeah, I'm just eager to have those extra two folks. That's why we put that on here because we did vote for 3 of us last time, right? So
Do we need to have the full list before?
So we have the 3 of us voted in last time, so we don't have any like new members to vote in right now. So that is on the agenda for next time. I'll recruit some people.
So, did you accept that position? I think there was, at that time, if you wanted to join the committee.
I wasn't here.
Oh, Rocky, if Rocky accepted it.
Yeah.
You got it.
You're okay.
Oh, that's right.
This is awkward.
Before you join it.
No, I don't think I can. When do you?
Oh, really?
Okay.
I can barely get myself to these meetings.
That's why
So you just got 2 right now.
I didn't want to say it.
You gotta get your recruitment.
But I did.
I'm a new one, so like, hey.
Sounds good. No, I'm glad you brought that up. You're right. You're absolutely right.
she was
We have a Zoom meeting during lunch.
Yeah. So so I think we table that also,
What's that, sorry?
the vote for membership or
Only have 2.
do
We
do
already
the.
voted on it. Yeah,
do the two
we already
first?
voted on it last month, so.
I'm gonna help you guys recruit.
And see, punt to next month when we
Yeah.
have some folks to vote. Some volunteers to accept.
I do think that maybe getting, like, if there's a way to like collaborate with Rep on this,
Yeah.
that would be a really good move.
Rep was very interested, so I think it makes total sense to get that going.
And we have to meet in person, right? I can't.
No, this is not. You do.
Yeah.
You will have to do that, yes. No, yes.
The rules.
All right. So to go back to the prior topic, yes, I sent it on, it was sometime ago, it was August 30th, I shared that with the council.
Yeah.
So it says that it was referred to the House Committee on Energy and Commerce back in July. It was introduced, so I don't see anything, and I'm not sure, perhaps I'm not even the best at kind of figuring out what progress is or status update is. The only thing that it says is that it was referred to the House Committee on Energy and Commerce.
So from that committee, they have to then nominate it themselves. So they'll have a desk of basically acts like this, and then that would be the next step. So if there's any progress, you would have to go on their site to see what they have put on the floor.
So we don't know.
No, you have to go to that committee to see what they have introduced.
Let's go with a hypothetical. Let's just say it hasn't been voted on and there's no restrictions on us. We would want to endorse it, or we would want to write a letter, or would we not want to write a letter? I think that's the first question.
If we vote on that.
Well, I think like if there's interest, like there's like, we can say that there is interest provided that there's no issues with doing that.
Yeah.
So like, is there interest among the council to participate in this?
I mean, I think it's a good idea. It's just a matter of doing the work.
Yeah.
I'll just say anecdotally, we all got sick at open house. Almost everyone in my family, just from being in the room. It's just the Peirce cough is what I'm calling it.
We could at least call it the CPS cough.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is to clarify whether we connect the minutes, right? Then, but this is not only the last one,
Right.
and for the future one, then we know for sure whether in our personal capacity or as a, I think the power of the LSC to say, this Peirce LSC breathing clean air and future step. So,
It's the Indoor Air Quality and Healthy Schools Act.
This question is, if we are allowed to endorse it, do we want to? Because if we don't want to, then it doesn't matter whether we're allowed to or not. But I think maybe we just put that for a record saying we would like to. I think that actually becomes a resolution, not a motion. But I'm not that much of a parliamentarian.
Yeah, I think based on like a lot of the things that we don't know yet, it's probably makes more sense to get more details on what we can do and what we cannot do, at the status of this current.
Right, that's the issue voters decide, do we want to get more details or do we want to kill it right now?
I would love to
And
get more details
Yeah, if
before
you-
I can commit to it, something that is based on what I'm being trained right now, that I'm studying and it's just, it's I really don't want to get caught up in something that it just fits back to something negative.
Yeah.
For our LSC.
What details are we
allowed to
looking for?
endorse it?
I'd say that like, Beth is the one that had initially expressed desire. I'd say, is there a council member that could follow up with Beth? Beth may even have a letter.
I think
Someone else could follow up with like legal to figure out, can we do this? And then if they say yes, then maybe Beth has a letter that can be brought to the council, and the council can then choose to either vote on it or not.
Okay,
I'll follow up with Beth. Does anybody else want to follow up with the legal stuff?
reaching out to, is it Hauser Rakina? I will email him. We've had a discussion, we've had no action, but we know what we're going to do. So my task is to email Jose, find out, are we allowed to?
Sounds good.
And then you'll tell Rocky so that Rocky knows whether or not she should, maybe Beth has this letter.
Yes, yeah.
You can send us an email, like send or whatever you find.
I'm good at sending group emails.
I think the question is, are we allowed to write a letter of support and then are we allowed to submit public comments? Because a lot of these will open for the public comment period and that's how they form the letter of support. So you could write a letter of support if public comment's not open, which I don't see that it is. Or if it is, when it does open, can we submit?
Chevron, it goes from like introduced to like past the house. I don't know what the thing in between. to your point, I think Lamont said we actually have to go to that committee and figure out what they have on the docket to try and figure out what's going on. All right. Thank you. Moving on to new business. We had an item here to vote on the timekeeper. I think, Nicole, in the past, you've kind of kept us.
Let's nominate Eric.
Sorry, it was coming.
That's definition of a.
Do you accept?
I will do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All right. So Nicole made a motion. Lori seconded. All in favor? All right. Opposed? Thank you.
We believe in you. You're short, what was it, HOA meetings or?
Let's
make it happen.
Throw that on.
That's like a little
Backup
gavel.
chair, backup minute taker, now timekeeper.
It's gonna moving through all the.
Yep.
All right, so next item is formalizing the process for responding to public comment. I don't know if folks have ideas or thoughts on.
I had hoped that we could have a long conversation and then have a decision at this meeting that we'd all vote on, but that got quashed because the conversation wasn't public. So I'm guessing either we can take 15, 20 minutes now, and if we've got a good idea, great. If not, then we're gonna have to have a temporary committee to make a decision, to make a motion, to have a discussion. But to put it my thoughts is, it sounds like most of the stuff that comes in isn't really something that our council needs to deliberate on. A lot of the public questions are really something that either principal or the administration can respond to. And through yourself and people who work for you, it sounds like 90% of them are the same day answer. It's a matter of, if a question comes to the LSC, does it get referred directly to, whether it's literally Principal Amy or a member of the office staff, without having to wait a whole month for the answer, because it could be the same day and it doesn't even need anything in here. Then the question is, that process, is that invisible or is there just a log? And at the meeting, it says 15 questions were submitted, 14 of them were school policy questions that were answered. That's it. We don't have to do anything else. Or is it, do we appoint someone here to be, because I know right now you're looking at all the emails, you formalize that, and there is an email and a backup email person that is responsible for managing all of those, where we just, every question that comes in, we pick, this is the one that goes before the council, those are the ones that go the other way, and I feel like maybe it even goes into, right, so we've got bylaws, but we don't have like community charters, right? And that's like, or it's like a written process that just says, when it happens, you do A, you do B, you do C, versus, hey, I got an email, what am I supposed to do? So, any other thoughts?
I would agree that a lot of them are like things that we just need to respond to. And so like, for instance, like just for an example tonight with like the sports question, like that's something I would have wanted to know a long time ago so that I can like find the information out and be able to respond to it.
By the same token, I don't necessarily, it takes a lot for people to kind of be able to participate at these meetings and share those thoughts. So I don't necessarily think that there's a timing component to it, but there's also like what's the word? An openness component, right? Like that's the reason why we have this. So I'm sort of trying to consider both ends, where it's like, to your point, that we need to have a process to kind of how do we go about addressing these things, right? And we don't necessarily have to wait for these meetings to happen, but also we
maybe the
also have to
openness,
balance that.
so it's all part of the minutes. I don't know if it's the minutes of the meeting or in other examples, it's a communications committee and the committee submits a report every month and the report is, these are the things that we go back and forth on. I'm wary of saying we need another committee. I just, you don't need to wait 30 days to get an answer on what the policy is. But at the same time, if someone wants to come and speak, this is an open forum. It's a great opportunity to do it. You don't want to discount anyone's opportunity to do that.
So I thought, because I had managed the inbox for a while, like as secretary, and the way that I was managing it, I think works, which is if somebody answers a question, asks a question that inbox that there's an answer to, you just reply to it. If somebody's sending an email that they intend for the entire LSC to see, you forward it to them and say, got your email, I shared this with the LSC. If you think something comes into that inbox that needs to be, or if anybody gets that email forwarded to them and thinks that that topic needs to be on the agenda for the next LSC meeting, then they tell Matthew and it goes on the agenda for the next LSC meeting to discuss. So that's how I would handle the inbox personally. And then I think for the public comment, I like sometimes it's just a quick response, but I feel like we haven't fully done justice to public comments because we want to give a quick response. So I would rather us like have a thoughtful response and put it on the agenda for the next meeting where there's like a more thorough response to like a major public comment concern that's brought up.
Just out of curiosity, how many emails do we get on average?
On average, a grand total of 2.5.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's answering them.
Right.
You know,
I think that parents are pretty good at reaching out to.
For
For the most part, like people kind of get their needs, like whether it's reaching out to the teachers directly or Lori or somebody else. It's those cases where now that we have a Peirce LSC email, if people have sending an email, I just want to make, we just want to make sure that there's that process in place, like kind of what Nicole was describing, but also having that more formalized, like I said, what do we do if?
So I feel like the first, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Also, maybe just trying to clarify the role of the council versus the principal, just like a company board, right? You decide, you recommend, and you deliberate on issues. But if some of these public comments or emails are really concerning the day-to-day running of the school, that's something that, yes, we can be aware that there's a need, but oftentimes I think principal can handle that, or the teachers, right? I'm just trying to make sure that we are staying within the bounds of what a board or a council is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this meeting is supposed to be deciding on matters that the principal is looking through the schools. But obviously, since we represent the public, if people come and make comments, we listen to them. But at the end of the day, we have to go back to have a decision made and implement that to this principal. We just want to make sure that it's done fair. So.
Agreed.
So I think the first step is formal. Is it formal that the chair is watching the email? And do we need a second person, or I think you always need a backup. But is that just the Peirce LSC's formal process as the chair plus one watches the email address? And by your judgment, it's a question came in, it's just about policy, I'm going to forward it over to school administration. This question is beyond answering the administration question, it should be on our agenda.
Yeah, I mean, I have a propensity to just forward it to everyone by default, and then we can make that decision on which bucket it falls into.
What I was like thinking this conversation actually lean more towards is, for instance, like at last month's meeting, I think Jessica, right, had asked like a bunch of questions, and I felt like I could easily give a response, like in that moment. But then like also like struggling with like, then that could also take like an extra like 30 minutes in the meeting to like do that. And so then I had just asked, like, can you just forward me those questions? And then I just responded to Jessica. So I guess I was thinking, like, are we trying to address that? Like, are we gonna keep with comment is made, don't give a response? But then like making sure that there's like some follow-up after.
So I don't know. I go to the name of the line is public comment, not public Q&A. I think the response is correct, is that these are policy questions. As a principal, I will provide you a formal answer to all of them, but I can't do it in this moment. And I think that's the right thing, because we don't want to spend 2.5 hours going through, even if it is like more than an administrative thing, we don't want to spend 2.5 hours of this meeting debating an item. Even if there's a real item, someone comes in and it's serious, we all need to talk about it. We don't want to take the whole meeting to do that. We're going to say, hey, this is something that needs to be discussed. We'll appoint a time to discuss it. We'll complete all of our regular business, or this is something that can be answered in an email tomorrow. Let's make sure we get the question right. Send the email tomorrow. So I'm going to throw in the curveball, because I did listen to the presentation on officers' duties. The secretary's official duty is to provide written responses on behalf of the board.
In that case, I would vote to do co-secretary because I don't feel comfortable taking all of that.
I think I'm already filling in.
For sure, I think, yeah, I mean, maybe the secretary is in charge of sending the formal response, but I think this is a collaborative effort. I think everybody's been doing that, right? Like, so they're kind of providing feedback as needed. I think if we're looking to formalize it, so the first thing is or operationalize it is, if there's something that comes in, everybody needs to be aware of it.
So I don't agree with that. I think there's plenty of things that come into that inbox that just the secretary or whoever's managing that inbox can just reply to, and it's not for everybody necessarily. It's not intended for everybody. At least that was my experience. And in terms of like a formal response, I just want to say a formal response is something I'll vote on. So just as an email comes from one of us doesn't make it a formal response from the LSC.
That's the reason why, that's the impetus for me asking for it to be sent to everyone, even if.
But we're not, but if we send it to everybody, that still, we're not getting a formal response out of that.
I understand that, but people need to be aware of it to kind of decide whether a formal response needs to be sent out.
I think
the secretary can judge that, like.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I agree with judgment, but I think that the sending a question via email is a proxy to a public comment, and the public comment is sent to everyone. So I do agree on, it's a public comment, it goes to everyone, okay. But then the decision, it really only takes one person to say, oh, this is just about the lunch schedule, I can forward that over. Or I need to put this on the agenda. And then that's a second email to everyone that says, hey, this question will be on the next agenda. And then we're not allowed to email each other back and forth to discuss it. We have to have a meeting that the public is available to have a meeting. And that's one thing Jose said. He goes, well, you could call a special meeting to do it if you don't want to wait. So I had probably a 20-minute discussion with him about it. And the bottom line is it's gray in that the public has a right to witness debate. But if a couple of people are just talking, is that really just, that's just not action of the board, and it's just, you're not hiding or denying the public the opportunity to witness something because you traded a few emails, unless those emails said we all are going to have this policy and vote on it, and we're not going to discuss the policy. But
people, as long as you don't have a quorum.
Yeah, it's
gray.
Yeah. So I think, do we just formalize that with a question comes in, everyone knows the question, you get a primary, do we want to have a secondary person on the email box? Okay. All right, so secondary person.
Yeah.
And it's either referred to or it becomes a public comment that we do here. And it sounds like the one from the Andersonville Chamber of Commerce isn't a public isn't worth
They
it.
want us to.
I don't think emails need to ever be like read out loud.
But then we can't consider emails part of public comments.
I agree, I don't think they are.
So I think that needs to be like a shift in practice if that's the direction we're moving. Because right now we're looking at, and I think we've advertised it, that emails can be a part of public comment. And so if we're saying that we don't want that, then that I do think we need to formalize.
I feel like that's.
I feel like it might be even on our website. I need to double check what's listed.
I think in that case, it can still be part of public comment in the notes, and it gets forwarded to everybody here.
And included in the minutes.
And people
Would a
are
note that-
pretty clear, if they want to participate virtually, they email us during the meeting. And they say, can you read this out loud at public comment?
Which
That is
says,
from an accessibility angle with the
Yeah.
virtual.
Yeah. But otherwise,
So I'm also feeling like people who write in comments don't know whether they want something public or not. They're just looking for information.
no, they actually request.
If
In the
they-
past,
sometimes
they've
explicitly say,
specifically
"Please
requested
read this
that it
out.
be
I
read
can't
read
make it to
or,
the meeting."
yeah.
All right, so I think we're okay at this point. I don't know if there's anything else that we discussed it. There are situations where you amend the procedures and protocols of the board, but I think we're okay here.
I would argue not reading it still is a public comment. You're sending it in, it's getting in the meeting minutes, it's getting to the LSC. It doesn't have to be read out loud every time. Like reading it out loud isn't what makes it a public comment.
Your battery day.
So if
There's
you
no
want
point.
to save meeting time, there's no need to read emails out loud.
And especially if it's just a comment on policy that gets answered in minutes, it doesn't really. Okay, I think we're good there. We've got plenty.
You want to use the,
I know, but then I
that
forgot.
USB-C right there?
This one. Great outlets.
You can use that.
I guess I want folks like whoever is managing the inbox to feel empowered to reply and not feel some weight of like, you are making some form of reply on behalf of the LSC, because that's not what's happening in the LSC inbox.
So on the other side.
It's old.
That makes sense.
Well, where's your adapter? Maybe you just. Oh, you didn't bring your adapter.
All right.
So are we looking to add a second or third person in this case to manage the?
Yeah, so I think we have at least two people. There might be, Nicole, do you
would
still have
like to
access
be
to it or
added?
no?
I don't.
I'm comfortable with two. One person's sick or on vacation, the other person's got it.
Lindsay wasn't.
Got it.
See, in our bylaws, it says when LSC meetings are being held virtually, Zoom chat will be open during public participation. So it seems like there needs to be, I know we don't do that anymore, so the bylaws need to be amended to address the public participation. And so I think then, as a result of us no longer using Zoom chat, we just informally adopted the email box.
Wait, are we using YouTube?
Yes.
But there is also a chat option on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah, there is. Usually it's like a little chime that comes in.
People genuinely?
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
that can
not right now.
problematic if you don't have someone monitoring it.
So with amending the bylaws, we put as a responsibility of the vice chair. So it sounds like we have to remove mention of Zoom, since we're not using Zoom.
Eric gets to amend the bylaws.
Which would literally just be eliminating that sentence.
Yeah.
I will trade a one-on-one email to get that done and we can vote on it next month.
Beautiful.
Very good.
Can we summarize where we're at with that conversation? Because I just want to make sure we've got clear like understanding.
So you have two people in the inbox, A and B. The comments get shared via email with everyone. Either one of the people who respond make the election to refer it to administrative response or include it in the next month's meeting. If it's policy, operations, it's administrative. If it's, I don't know what a question would be that would want an LSC action, but then it becomes something before the board. And I can't think of an example, but
I
that,
think the indoor air quality is an example.
that is a good one. And-
Unless it's specifically asking to be read.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Anything that's requested to be read, as long as it's appropriate, can be read.
That's good.
We're not going to read a political statement or somebody's, treatise on something, but as long as it's appropriate, it'll be read into the minutes. I guess if it's inappropriate, then the minutes just say an inappropriate comment was requested and it has not been read because it's filled with, I don't know, political rhetoric or who knows, yeah.
Good. Thank you. All right, next item here, any items that need to be added to the agenda for next meeting? I had here maybe a follow-up on the team, yeah. And then the equity committee update. I think that can be done during the equity.
Yeah, the membership vote again, so that
Yeah.
we can vote in some numbers. Do we need to add the principal evaluation committee vote? Do we need more members for that committee too? Okay.
Bylaws.
Vote.
Yeah, so we will vote for the amendment to
And then the indoor
bylaws.
air quality act, if there's any updates on that.
Very good.
I wanted to suggest that, not for the next meeting, but for like around the time these are due, that maybe we just like hand them in at the meeting. So it's like encourage people to vote. on that, so.
The vote or
That's the
that's the application?
That's the application.
Yeah, I guess I was, yeah, and that's
It's
the
not
vote.
mandatory.
Yeah, the application's on them for, and the numbers kind of code, but yeah, the votes, it's due by April 2nd, so maybe for our next meeting, we just have the ballots.
I think they usually send that to me. I thought they sent it and then I shared it with the council.
Yeah, it looks like there's a candidate form the 3rd, so then we should be able to kind of know who the candidates are, and then maybe vote, I don't know. We're handing out ballots at our March meeting, just a suggestion, so that we can encourage each other to participate in that.
Very good. So, you want to put in like an item to follow up for the March?
Yeah.
I feel like the district will give me the ballots, I will give them to you all, because it even says here the principal will send, the returned votes will be given back to the principal and sign the voter verification sheet. And then I have to send the privacy envelopes, back to the office of local school control, by April 3rd. So I think that will naturally happen, just like I got this and had to share it, I feel like I'll get it and then have to share it.
Very good. Thank you. Next item is the second round of public participation. And in order for me to go by what we just discussed, I just did look at the inbox. There's nothing in there. Next item, announcements, comments. Just want to remind everyone that the annual Lunar Year
Oh my
Parade
God.
the date has not yet been determined, but it's during the month of February of next year. So there's a float that usually
You're going to be driving it?
No, actually, no, we're not allowed to. There is a insurance thing, so please keep that in mind.
An insured float driver.
Okay, good. Anything else? Checking on norms. Thank you again for the conversation. With that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks everyone for joining. Give me shape in an hour.
Yeah.
Going on.
Next meeting.
Six.
You only do that if you're allowed to discuss something and everything in email first.
Next one, we're coming on hot.